So then that brings me to the question of my point of what I'd like to say about this committee hearing. In California alone, there were 812 gang-related homicides in California in 2007. So, and I'm trying to get the national number as we speak, but I don't have that. So I'd like to say this in light of some of the comments that have been made. I do not disagree that radicalization occurs, according to the definition that I read. I don't disagree, as Mr. Dunleavy said, that radicalization, in fact, occurs in prisons with various groups. What I disagree with, and I would say again with all due respect to the chairman, is the scope of this committee's only focusing on one particular group. I actually believe that the focus of one particular group on the basis of race or religion can be deemed as racist and is discriminatory. And I would ask for the record in the future that we as a committee, I agree that we need to look at the prisons, and I wholeheartedly agree we need to examine all terrorist attacks and threats, and you will have my 100% support. But the continued discriminatory, what I believe, of one particular group on the basis of race or religion is flawed and should not be done in the House of Representatives. I yield back.
Since the charge was leveled to me, I will take the prerogative of answering. I disagree 100% with the gentlelady. She is entirely wrong. The fact is this committee was set up to combat terrorism. It was set up after September 11th. As gentleman, Mr. Smith has testified, there are already procedures in place which follow gangs when they leave prison. We have the protocols in place for that. Unfortunately, because in too many instances of political correctness, we do not have protocols in place to follow those who are trained in jihad in the prisons. That's why this is unique. And I would say to the gentlelady, your party had control of this committee for 4 years, not one hearing at all, on anything at all involving prisons, on skinheads, on Nazis, on Aryan nation, white supremacists at all. Suddenly this issue emerges when we start talking about Muslim radicalization. That is the purpose of this committee. We have a judiciary committee to deal with other issues in the prisons. I agree, gangs are very important. Aryan nation is important. Neo-Nazis are important. The purpose of this committee is to combat Islamic terrorism because that is the terrorist threat to this country. If we find out that neo-Nazis are allied with a foreign power and they're coming to this country, we will investigate it. If we find out that Aryan is allied, it's my time. If we find out that Aryan nation is allied with a foreign power, we will address it. The fact is we are not going to spread ourselves out, investigate everything, which means investigating nothing. We are going to focus on a target which threatens the security of this nation, and that's why we are doing it without in any way minimizing the other threats. We have committees for that. Our committee is set up to combat terrorism, and that's what we're going to do. And with that, I yield. No, I will not. I will now recognize
white supremacists. Check out the history.
The fact is, if it was so important, you had 4 years on this committee, and not once was a hearing held into any of those issues. Recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Bilirakis, for 5 minutes.